Now let's compare not using or stopping to change or recovery. When we compare those two things, the primary difference is there is a plan. If you are winging it, if you are trying to wing this process of change, you will fail. Change or recovery has to be a skilled intervention. It cannot just be an ill-formed thought or an idea. Most people will say, I have a plan, and here's the plan. I hear it 99 times a day, if not once. Get a job, go to school, go to meetings. All of those things are strongly encouraged in most programming. But they lack content. Why are they going to these things? Why are they going to? You need to take them there. They need to understand what their true motivation for doing that is. You'll see not only a change in behavior, but a change in the value systems. Now, when we start looking at this guy who came in, think about what he said. He said, I don't want to miss out on my opportunity to get out. What can we assume the value is behind that thing? Instead of identifying just the fact that he's now considering the consequences, we need to ask whether or not, if that is the main reason he avoided the confrontation, is that the sole reason he avoided confrontation? Because let's assume that those two things are true. In most cases they are. If that is the truth, then has the value changed at all about how he views violence? Has he changed the way he thinks about using violence? If all I did was delay a consequence, does that imply I've changed whether or not I think violence is acceptable? No, it does not. What I am actually saying to you is, if it had been the right time, the right place, and the probability of getting away with it was better, I probably would have knocked this guy on his ass, and I'd have been scot-free. Does that make sense? That's why it's not enough to just evaluate the behavior. It's not enough. We need to understand the motive behind that. You'll start noticing that there's an ownership of all the behaviors, not just the me part, but also the not me, the not so good part of me. I can own that. I can say, this is who I am. This is, I have done these things. That's why I laid it out in the beginning. I can address that openly with you. Disclosure should be a major part of your program, because you're evaluating how they're disclosing. You need to be listening to how they're expressing their empathy for the victims, their empathy for their family. Evaluating what is motivating the change. I'll tell you this, we can let them off the hook in the beginning of the program, in the beginning of the intervention, because whatever means gets you to the table is okay. If consequences is what's got you sitting here talking with me today, that is fine. I don't care how you start the change process, that is the way it's going to be. We invite all of that. But now towards the end of your change process, if the only thing that is still motivating you is those consequences, then the program hasn't done enough to help you, and you haven't done enough to help you look at significant reasons why you should change versus superficial. That is superficial change. And that will get you your 8-week certificate, your 12-week certificate. It's superficial change. That's why recidivism rates are so high. We are okay with superficial change. To relapse, you must be in recovery. Most people use the term relapse, but have never been in recovery. Why do I say that? Because there was no formal plan. There was no formal system. Relapse is a natural part of recovery. That's why they're attached. We don't discourage relapse or discourage relapse. We actually want you to be prepared for it because it is inevitable. But it doesn't imply that you have to reoffend, and it doesn't imply that you're going to use again. It implies that once you learn what relapse is really about, that you'll be able to catch those thoughts, those feelings, those experiences that lead to the end result of using or reoffending. I had a relapse moment on the way up here. This guy, and if you were driving a red RAV4 with a hardcover thing on the back and zooming in and out of traffic to get here on time, you were wrong. I want you to know that. And I said, ooh, that guy just cut off that semi. This was after watching him for 10 minutes cut people off and never get 2 or 3 cars ahead of me. He didn't realize it was a traffic jam. And I said, boy, I wish that semi would hit him. And my wife says, baby, you have to be careful when you say things like that. And I said, okay, you're right. I wish that semi would hit him carefully. It's a relapse moment. This is the truth. In your PowerPoints, these can be emailed to you because I made some adjustments since the handouts were. You'll see that this is the structure. And the upper part of this continuum represents that broken philosophy. We're going to get to that in a second, that broken philosophy. And on the bottom is really what we're looking for. We're really listening for these things that are on the bottom of this continuum. The difference is that neither side of the spectrum is rooted in truth. Is it a reasonable decision? Is it a responsible decision to make a decision to use? Well, of course not. Once we find that that's an incorrect hypothesis or an assumption, then you naturally have to assume that the other half of the story is also based on falseness. Because the only time I am irresponsible is when I'm using can't be true. Because I'm making irresponsible decisions even when I'm sober, even when I'm clean, even when I haven't been violating. None of that is true. If you notice, there is no dividing line between who I am on either side of that spectrum. I am always this person. One of my counselors aptly put it, Sammy will never be free of himself. I always will have to face that gangbanger, that abused kid, that helpless kid, that violent person. I will always have to face that every day. I cannot try to separate the good from the bad in me. I have to accept all of it in order to be comfortable with who I am and with my change. We then share the final piece is that none of that story that we just told is true. It's all based on lies. The truth is in there, but we haven't identified it yet. And then we go back to the drawing board to talk about what real change is going to be. Now, we can't guarantee the outcome of anybody that we're sitting across from. I wish I had that answer. I would have written the book by now. But I think that this intervention, this style of listening, this style of questioning, is really going to help root out whether or not the change is superficial or meaningful. Does it go deep enough? Has this person thought the change out? Now think about this. This guy is going to leave this treatment thinking he has changed, not recognizing that his value system really hasn't budged. We share some responsibility in having to shed light on that. Law enforcement, I think, can apply this when listening to those people, because some of you have to continue to do community policing. You know, there was a guy who was here, you know, and he was talking about being on Brown Street. You know, we still have to work. You guys got to work with us still. You might want to know how to listen to us to detect whether or not you feel that we're somebody that you can work with. I work closely with law enforcement. One thing that you will see about it is that there's consistency in my behavior and transparency. That is another sign of true change. There's consistency and transparency. It's an open book. People know where I'm at 24/7. I don't have moments of disappearing. You won't see me in a different light tonight when I'm on the streets. I'll be talking the same way I'm talking to you right now. There's that consistency. And I'm accountable. When I screw up, I hold myself accountable by disclosing that to at least one other person. And to be honest with you, I'm still in contact with my treatment providers from over 11 years ago. Because they told me, and I believed them, that the people who call back on a regular basis tend to stick with change. I'm not free of myself, so there are my counselors that I still call and say, hey, this is who I am today, this is what I'm doing today. And they're like, man, we're so happy for you. I want to say thank you. My contact information is available to you. I would love, this is just one group out of 1,000, one activity that helps highlight the main points of listening, knowing how to listen to people, helping them help themselves. I don't want you to just think that I won't make myself available to you if you want to sit down and talk. I travel, I have a phone, I email, I've got a good phone, I can do that. All right, I'm going to say thank you, and again, thank you, Dean, for having us, and Paulina, for everything that you've done for us. Thank you.